So hi, everybody. Thank you for coming tonight. I'm Chris Costa, your town planner and zoning officer. And sorry about the little technical difficulty to start, but we're having a little presentation this evening from Carolyn from Save Our Shade, who would like to introduce herself and her project to our boards and commissions. And at this point, I'll introduce Carolyn.
Okay, hi, my name's Carolyn Lyle. Thank you all for coming. This is awesome to see everybody here. I'm with an organization called Save Our Shade. A couple of us are here and have supported Save Our Shade. And thank you both. Well, thank you, Chris, for setting this up and inviting me, and thank you all for coming to talk about trees. We're all concerned about trees. The Save Our Shade organization really was the result of a social media next door discussion about trees in Old Saybrook. Stories of clear cutting trees, stories of Eversource, bless their heart, cutting trees, stories of trees not being maintained. So several of us got together and came up with a plan to build our shade. Now, it wasn't original to us because a lot of the shade the building the shade that we talked about came from Madison, organization called Madison Mad for Trees. So Sharon and I met with them, and a lot of what you see here is plagiarized. But they did a good job, and that's what we want to do too. All right, so I'll go through the presentation, and I'm also gearing this presentation to talk to the commissions. Now, I would like to know your names that's here from the commissions.
I'll start, Mike Bender, I'm on the planning commission.
Okay,
I'm on the zoning, Mike Kelly and all things.
okay,
Jerry Lewis zoning.
okay,
I'm not on a commission.
okay. Okay, great. All right, well, thank you for coming. So,
That's just me. I'm trying to,
okay,
I was trying to show, we have people online. I was trying to get
Oh,
that
wonderful.
view up so that they could introduce themselves.
that'd be great. Yeah, I'd like to know who's online. That'd be wonderful.
So,
Oh, boy.
yeah, we have quite a few. We have 14 folks online.
Good, awesome.
Would everybody online like to introduce themselves? Raise your hand.
Can everybody online hear us?
Joanne, do you want to, we'll start with Charles Gaden. I guess we could do it that way.
I'm Charles Gaden, the Chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Okay.
Hey, Laura?
Hi, Laura Gray. Sorry I can't be there in person, but I am not feeling well tonight. I'm on the Zoning Commission and the Historic District Commission.
Matt?
Hi, good evening. Matt Puglisi on the Board of Selectmen.
Barbara? Barbara Harms?
Okay.
Barbara?
So Barbara's on our Historic District Commission. Is that, I'm not sure why we can't hear her.
Host?
Brenda Brenda Dyson is on the Zoning Commission. I'm not sure who iPad Pro is.
Later, we want to thank you for helping him.
Oh, no problem. I took care of it.
Kevin Danby is on the Zoning Board of Appeals. Megan Dupless is on our Planning Commission, but she also works for River Cog, our regional planning agency. And Kathy Connolly is a resident who has been very involved for many years on tree committees and other tree efforts, I guess I could say. So I think that pretty much summarizes everyone that I know.
I'm here too, Aaron.
Aaron.
Oh, wonderful.
Right behind you, we have a whole.
Andrew Morosky from zoning board. of appeals.
Okay, great. Perfect.
Dennis from planning commission.
Okay, great. And thank you all for being here. Does everybody know Chris? Everybody, do we all know?
I'm Chris Costa, the town planner and zoning officer. So nice to meet everybody, but I don't.
Okay, well, again, thank you. So SOS Trees is Save Our Shade. We are a community group of concerned citizens, and several of the people here have come to several of the meetings. We've been meeting regularly, really, since October. We have a vision for a community with a really strong and healthy tree canopy, and I'll go over why that's really important. We are not a 501c3, however, we are under the umbrella of the Community Foundation of Middlesex County. So we can raise funds and get their advice as an organization. So we are covered by 501c3 umbrella. Our short-term goal is to increase the tree canopy in Old Saybrook. We want to hold a Arbor Day, really, April 27th, free tree giveaway. The goal is to give free trees away. And I have several flyers that anybody here can take one because this will explain what we do and how you can help us and donate. We would like to have a long-term goal of being, Old Saybrook being a U.S. Arbor Day Foundation tree city. There's only 4 elements to that. There's over 20 tree cities in the state of Connecticut. Several are along the shore. Branford, a couple up and down the river, I believe Groton is, but there's over 20 tree cities. That means that we would have to have a tree ordinance. We'd have to have a tree commission, and in several cases, the Conservation Commission acts as a tree commission. We would have to have a budget and honor Arbor Day. The budget is $2 per resident. So it's not a whole lot of money, but anyway, that's our goal, is to help get a tree ordinance and a tree commission and become an Arbor Day city. So why are we worried about tree canopies? Trees absorb dangerous pollutants that lead to unhealthy air. We're looking at absorbing nitrogen dioxide, ozone, carbon dioxide, particulates, and sulfur dioxide, all of which lead to respiratory, internal issues with eyes, respiratory, the whole ear, nose, and throat, problems such as asthma, and vulnerabilities to other viruses. So trees absorb all that, and not only that, they give us oxygen. They also help combat rainfall impact. When it rains, trees will soak up the rain. This is logical. Stormwater runoff. They help with stormwater runoff. They help with heat extremes by shading, and they also buffer noise. They're also critical to biodiversity. The pollinator pathways, where we can pollinate trees and flowers and help the wildlife and the diversity and the birds in our town. They recycle nutrients. A lot of what comes off the branch and off the bark and off the seeds, trees plant more trees. And they also give nutrients to the ground. And they're aesthetic, and they have an aesthetic and cultural value. We have a lot of historic trees in Old Saybrook, a lot of very important activities, markers of our town were around trees. They're also vital for an infrastructure stability. People like to go to parks where there are trees. You meet your neighbors, you meet other people. They're also a safe environment because of the calming effect. There's a psychological effect and economic. Research shows that people will be more liable to shop on tree-lined streets. We have sidewalks going up and down Route 1. It'd be great to put trees on that sidewalk and give our business partners business. And people want to buy houses that are appearance with trees. They're also good for climate change resiliency and sustainability. So there's many, many benefits, which is why we want to have a strong and healthy tree canopy. So the data about Old Saybrook, and I have examples of the data with me. And this comes from the iTree tool from the United States Department of Ag from 2021 data. 47.89% of the land in our town is covered by tree layers. And a tree layer, or a tree canopy, is the layers of leaves, branches, and stems been viewed from above. That's our tree canopy. It does not, it's what covers land. We're not talking about the water, we're not talking about the marshes, we're not talking about water areas, which trees don't grow in the middle of the North Cove or South Cove. And then, according to the American Forest Tree Equity data from 2022, 8 of our census block groups have low canopy, which means they are high to moderate priority for planting trees. I have that data also in terms of what census block have low canopies, and we're talking low anywhere from 13 to 18%. There are some of our census blocks that have a lot more canopy. So the overall average gets to 47.89, but there are census blocks. I live in Cornfield Point. There are streets in Cornfield Point. There are no trees. We are also the lowest tree canopy among our shoreline neighbors. You can see that everybody has a larger tree canopy than we do. And on a graph, that's what that looks like. Also, in Middlesex County, we're the second lowest tree canopy in Middlesex County. According to the iTool, our tree canopy, now granted, this was in 2021. We've lost trees since 2021. And since 2021, even if we planted trees in 2021, they're not big enough to show a canopy. So that puts focus on mature, healthy trees that contribute to our canopy. So chances are we have a lot less acreage with tree canopy. So according to the iTree tool, we have 7,892 plantable acres. And again, I have this information. So talking to the commissions, talking to all the residents, we would like to partner with you and help you do the building of the tree canopy as well. So the Natural Resources Plan of Old Saybrook, Plan of Conservation Development, I have a copy of it here. Under Policy 3, it says, protect Old Saybrook critical natural resources, such as require low-impact development approaches to all new construction. And that's low impact to our natural resources. Our trees are natural resources. Increase resources to the tree warden and property owners to focus on tree stewardship. So our language is there, our intent is there. So the ask is how can we put action and legs to these words? The other thing is you control or enforce, and thank you for your time, on the zoning regulations pertaining to landscaping and the planting of trees. So I've been here at some meetings where there has been unauthorized cutting of trees, where violations or permits were discussed. And so I wrote a letter to everybody on the commissions as well as to our selectmen that we need to have some kind of punishment, some kind of disincentive for violating and apologizing after the fact. So we can do money reparation for the planting of trees. We could require a report of internal process corrections. In my pre-retired life, I was in the enforcement business for non-discrimination. Oftentimes we wrote requirements of the offenders, tell us what went wrong, tell us what you're going to correct. And if you come back in the employment market or the housing market or public accommodations market, we want to report that you're not, that what you did, what your hiring practices that were a violation of the law, how you're not going to do that again. So these are kinds of things that we can do. Subsequent permits to violators, we should probably look at compliance reporting. We also would like to help you educate residential developers and private owners to keep those mature, healthy trees, landscape with trees. These trees have provided canopy for years and years and years. And when they're cut down, all of that protection is gone and it's gonna take decades to replace those trees. So the land use department put some input, and I have a copy of their input, about the plan of conservation and development. So listening to the land use department, and they put in that input, consider regulations to encourage, incentivize the preservation of mature trees and to replace trees that are removed. The other thing is, let's develop a street planting and maintenance plan. So we're hoping that we can get a strategic plan that includes enforcement, includes disincentive, includes planting, and includes saving our mature trees. The Conservation Commission asked for a tree ordinance proposal. And in their ask, they say we urge boards and commissions to use whatever tools available to require applicants to mark limits of clearing and the preservation of individual trees on plans as conditions of approval. There are some tree ordinances in towns in Connecticut where they require residential owners to seek a permit to cut down a tree that impacts public property, such as a tree that shades a public sidewalk, or a tree that gives shade to a public park. So there's examples of this. And our Conservation Commission recommended adopting a tree ordinance that would flag historical and significant sized trees for preservation and have that apply to commercial and residential properties. So these are the kinds of things we need to encourage. So at the end of the day, we'd like to declare with you that Old Saybrook is a place where trees matter. We need to increase our canopy. We're losing it. So, and I really appreciate the time here. And any questions from anybody? Anybody here in the audience? Any questions?
How tall does a tree have to be until it's canopy quality?
That's a great question. It's the spread of the branches is what it is. So you have shorter trees, and that's a great question because Eversource puts out a list of trees. I think on that list of trees, there's like 35 trees. And these are trees that are 25 feet, between 25 and 30 feet, that aren't going to interfere with utilities. So those trees that have the spread of branches from the above are going to cause shade. So it's not the height, it's how much their branches spread out. And the Mad for Trees, there are some shrubs, like in this picture here, you can see there are some shrubs that's cast out trees, depending on where the sun sets and where the sun rises.
Is that shrub count as a tree?
There are some shrubs that would count as shade bearing shrubs. Yeah, there are, yeah. And so we'll be working with a vendor once we raise our money. And I should tell you that today, and that's what's in this flyer, today, we are a crowdfunding campaign. So the nice thing is Old Saybrook is a silver level sustainable town. And because Old Saybrook is a sustainable town, our project qualifies for a crowdfunding campaign. So any donations we get from here till March will be matched for them. So anyway, so the reason I say that is we're going to work with the vendor once we have enough money to buy trees, and they will help us with that. Thank you. Yeah, any other questions?
Yeah, we have a question online from Chuck.
Okay.
Chuck?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yeah.
can.
My question is this, because it's a constant conflict with trying to satisfy Eversource with the utility wires and the canopies of trees. It's confusing to me and frustrating because when Eversource gets involved, they end up butchering the tree to satisfy the needs of Eversource. And in reality, the tree doesn't literally look like a canopy tree anymore. It looks like half of a tree, but I know we're trying to be able to support the utilities, and I'm just confused as how we make that all work in certain areas, especially with the sustainability and the fact that we have these crazy weather events. So we don't want trees going down and taking out the utility wires, but in turn, we don't want to butcher these trees.
That's a great question. So we met with Eversource and our tree warden. And we learned that Eversource uses a standard of how to cut a tree near a utility line. And that they train their labor to cut the tree. One of our questions was, is an arborist look over those plans? And the answer was, not all the time. We don't have enough arborists, and our tree warden is really spread thin. However, there are other standards for utilities to cut trees, and there are utilities that can pass the training and the standards put out by the Arbor Day Foundation. So there are utilities in Massachusetts that are recognized by the Arbor Day Foundation as kinder, gentler, more friendly to trees than what we have. So there are standards that utilities can apply that aren't gonna, tree's not gonna look like it's half a tree or a tree that has a big V in the middle of it. And the other thing is Eversource has a program where if a homeowner agrees to have a tree cut down, because here's the other thing. Eversource will want to cut down your tree. If you own the tree, you have a right, and we have members of our group, you have a right to talk to Eversource and say, wait a minute, what are you cutting? Where are you cutting? And oh, by the way, I want to cut it myself, or I want to get my own arborist to cut it, because I don't want that tree to be disfigured, and I want it to last. And you have a right to discuss that with Eversource. So that can improve. And then when Eversource does take a tree, if it's really imminent to fall down, they will replace the tree. And they will replace the tree with that list of 35 trees that will be in the place and will not disturb the utility line again. So there is room to work with Eversource. And our tree warden, one of the things we need to do is what the plan of development said, we need to increase the resources to our tree warden. If we increase those resources, then maybe we can have more fruitful cooperative discussions with Eversource. Does that answer your question?
That was a good answer. I'm just concerned. We really need to educate the members of our community with what we can and can't do with Eversource, because it's kind of intimidating when Eversource knocks on your door and says they have to do some pruning of your tree. I have like a tree in my home that I should probably take it down because it doesn't look like much of a tree anymore, and it's embarrassing. But
right,
the fact that I had no idea that Eversource you could have it cut down and they could replace it with another tree and another. Now, does it have to go in the exact location? Can it go in another location? How does that system work, and how do we educate our community?
well, with regards to the first question, the tree that's cut down, if Eversource, if the tree is about to fall down and Eversource says this tree has to go and there's no way around it, then they will replace the tree with the tree that's not going to grow as tall as the tree that they cut down. So yes, they can do it in the same place, but it's going to be one of those 25-foot low trees. In terms of education, we would like to help with that education. I mean, we should talk about that. We should collaborate on that. The funding that we are raising is funding for buying trees. So I can't raise money for an education program because we have a contract with the Foundation of Middlesex County to buy trees. So, but the town has resources. We're happy to educate. We're happy to do whatever we can, but education's a big part of this.
Let me just back up a little bit.
Sure.
Going back to what he was saying, when they come in to trim the tree, could you tell them I want that tree taken down, or they have to determine the tree has to come down?
I don't know for,
Yeah,
I don't know
because they've done the
exactly,
same thing to me. They butchered the tree.
right?
But
I
the
think
tree
they
is still
decide.
alive.
Well,
I think they decide.
It's their decision, right? That's what I thought. Okay.
well,
Chuck, you have something else to say?
No, I appreciate it. This has been very educational. And it's something that I really believe the residents, we don't have a handle on it because we just take it for granted that they need to do what they have to do. And we don't get much information, and we want to be good stewards of our community and not take out our electric grid. But in turn, we really enjoy the beauty of the canopy. And that's all I wanted to state.
well, there are ways to work with Eversource. We have members that have worked with Eversource and have negotiated with Eversource about what's gonna happen to my tree, who's gonna cut my tree, and what the health of my tree is. So there are ways to do this. And there are other standards that Eversource can use that can be more friendly and more supportive of trees.
So around like that standards question here, and it's kind of getting back to like, you were like, would that be something that we'd have to like have in our tree ordinance? Or is that something every individual property owner would have to know about? Like, could the town write, you know, our ordinance says Eversource has to follow these standards to cut trees? I don't.
No,
Okay.
no. Old Saybrook can't tell Eversource what they have to do with trees. However, if we were an Arbor Day city, Arbor Day Foundation tree city, then we could work with Eversource and say, hey, how would you like to be an Arbor Day utility? And also collaborate with the other towns that are Arbor Day tree cities in Connecticut. And see how we can work with them on regulations, because trees are more and more important.
Yeah, I'm assuming Eversource is probably not the biggest offender in terms of cutting down trees in Old Saybrook. Like, do we know like what that is from just the tree cover? Like, what are the main causes? Is it developers? Is it homeowners?
I don't know. I mean, this iTree tool can look at that. This iTree tool, we can, and I haven't done that. I mean, anyway, there's an iTree tool can look at what our tree canopy was, let's say in 2020, and what it is now, and where we lost trees. And then we can look at that census data, and say, oh, that's a new shopping thing. An example, we have that plan for Mariners Way going. So we just want to prioritize trees. So,
I have a question.
sure.
How many trees does it take to make a canopy? Or can you have a canopy with one tree?
I don't know that I can't tell you that,
Oh,
but the tree canopy is a group of trees.
I understand, but you know, do I get 10 people on my street to have a tree? And then we have a 10-tree canopy? Or, you know, Johnny in the third house down doesn't want a tree and now we have 2 little canopies?
Is the percent of land that's covered by trees.
Oh,
So for instance, in Cornfield Point, there's a street with 2 trees. So that particular census tract is probably gonna show 12% of trees. 12% of the land has trees on it.
right.
So one tree is going to have a shade to it. But the percent of that to all of the open land, is going to be small. Does that help you?
Yeah, Erin, do you still have your question?
You have a question?
Yes, so you said that Madison was very successful. I was just curious how long it took for them to see an impact. Once they started making an effort on the tree canopies, is it something that's quick or is it like a long-term plan?
Well, it's a long-term plan. Madison started out in 2020, I believe, 2020. And their goal was 250 trees for their 200 trees for their 200th anniversary. And they also did trees and bushes. And now, and they've surpassed that. Now their goal is 1,000 trees. And they're already at 800 and some odd trees. So the more trees, the more shade, the more tree canopy. But it takes time. Hey, Chris, hi.
I get what she's done. I wanted to make.
It takes time for the tree to grow and to branch out and be a shade. Yeah, Chris.
Now, I wanted to chime in, it's Chris Pittler, I'm the chair of the Conservation Commission. We've had a couple meetings preliminary with Chris Costa, and you can chime in, and Kathy Connolly. But I think the other part of this is, so you have the private residents that we want to educate, right? But then it's also the developers that a lot of you see at the table. So our vision is to come up with like the list of trees, because there are some better trees to plant. Kathy knows this, they're more climate resilient. They may not get blown down when we have the storms and so forth. So I think the other piece of this is, as we go forward, is what you can do on your commissions when you have all those people coming to the table and say, well, here's your requirements, and these are trees that we really want you to plant, or the bushes, or whatever's appropriate for that space. And you comply with DOT, because that's a whole nother issue that's also the fight.
Kathy's raising her hand online too. I don't know if she has anything to add. Kathy?
Kathy? Kathy,
Can you hear me?
we can.
Okay, great. Yeah, I want to speak to Jim's question. Jim Therian asked the question, what actually is a tree canopy? And from my reading of current literature, the various studies that are coming up about not the past of trees, but the future of trees, is that it's much wiser to use trees in clusters. And when I say the word tree, we really need to break it down into a couple categories, because what is the difference between a tree and a shrub? Well, it's really just a matter of degree. And the reality is that we as a country, we adopted a European style of tree planting. And when I say European, I mean European royalty, European nobility, by putting in these long allays of trees. And an alley simply being a long row of trees lining either side of a street. And that worked for 70 to 80 years. It started in the early 1800s when the chestnuts came down, and then the elms came down, and now many of the maples are coming down. It doesn't work in today's world, that idea of sticking a tree in every 40 feet and then letting the canopy grow together. It just isn't where this topic is headed. And Jim, to answer your question, what a lot of the current thinking is, and academic thinking, is that you're much better off with clusters. And those clusters combine taller trees with medium trees, understory trees, but also very much with shrubs, because the shrubs form a ground cover that eliminate the need, or the perceived need, for lawns. And lawns are a piece of the enemy here. So I would just like to say that I hope that as this moves forward, and I hope it does move forward, that there's a consideration of what the current research is showing us. And it really isn't about allays of trees lining. If you look at a picture of old Saybrook's main street in 1911, it was indeed lined by elm trees. But the road width was only perhaps 40 feet. And if you were to measure the road width today, it's closer to 110, 120 feet if you include the sidewalks. And so there's nowhere for rainfall to penetrate into the roots of larger trees. And so you need systems rather than individual trees standing like soldiers along a march. It just simply is a model that probably will not work into the future. So Jim, I would just like to suggest that it's clusters of trees, not individual trees, clusters of trees of different sizes with some shrubs to form areas that cover ground and protect each other's roots, which clusters of vegetation are very good at nourishing each other. And that's really an important thing to take forward as other plans evolve for vegetation in Old Saybrook.
Thank you, Kathy. I have to imagine that within that structure of clusters, there's the landscaping capability for the landscapers in town to say, yes, you have a big tree, medium tree, and then shrub understory things. And I'm sure the landscapers moving forward can make it look nice. And not just some random stick it in the ground and there you go.
Well,
It's very true. I think it's a big opportunity. And it's one that a lot of people, I think, have a hard time envisioning because of where we've come from in the past.
Right.
But it is the wave of the future. I can say that in academia, that's where they're heading. When they look at climate-facing trees, they look at clusters, partly because they're more resilient to hurricanes and other major storm events. Clusters of plants guard each other and provide protection. And individual trees have they're much more prone to branch drop and for the whole trunk falling over. So it's just a consideration.
Well, one thing we can do is concentrate on areas that are bare of trees, that are plantable spaces, and concentrate on a cluster there. However, the other side of this are mature, tall trees that already aren't an allay, but they already provide a lot of those benefits of just trees. So as the Conservation Commission had pointed out last December, those need to be tagged and we need to protect those and have stewardship of those. Yes.
Hi, Christine B., new resident of Old Saybrook for a year and a half. Is SOS directing these efforts towards, are you, commercial properties, private property, town property, all of the above, prioritizing, or according to need?
Well, we don't have any regulatory authority. We are a community group. We want to educate people to the importance of trees, and we want them to want trees. So we are raising funds, and those funds are going to be first come, first served. We will have a registration form, and again, this is from Matt for Trees, or the registration form. People that sign up for a free tree, they'll know what trees are available, and to Chris's point, we got to get the right trees. And we want to educate as to where is that tree going to be, and we need a commitment that you're going to take care of that tree. The tree planning, the tree landscape canopy planning, that's what we hope the commissions do. Or that's the so we are just a small little group, although you can all join and be not there. There are areas that we know from the data, and then there was this great article in the Harbor News that actually mapped out some of our census blocks that are more green than others. And we know this area, and we can help, we can work with this area. So, but as an organization, we have to discuss that. So bottom line is we're buying trees, the right kind of trees, and we want to get people to want those trees. Yes.
I had a question. You talked about some like just the benefits of having trees, but is there any like data that you show like what is a tree worth, like a full mature tree, like how much, like what is the impact or economic benefit to the town of having that? Because when a developer says I want to cut this down, they're gonna say it's cheaper for them to cut it down and plant something small, but there's a cost to that tree going down to the town. Like, how could you counter that?
Well, the iTree tool has benefits of trees and tree canopies marked by money.
Oh, wow.
So, so our tree benefits in Old Saybrook, and this is a tree canopy that is on 4,611 acres. The carbon dioxide uptake, the annual value of that is 627,000. I mean, this tool is wonderful. The stormwater mitigation, the annual value of that, now granted this is 2021, was 149,380. Air pollution removal was 213,000. So there are benefits. Carbon dioxide impact uptake was 35,238,808. So there's data on carbon storage for our total tree canopy. Now,
That's great. Yeah, because when I think of the block, it's, clear cut, it's gonna take 30 years to replace the tree canopy. That's 30 years of all of this benefits that are no longer accruing
correct.
to the town.
And to Kathy's point, those benefits are going to be concentrated on the areas that are more green. And those areas that are more green tend to be, neighborhoods where people have large lands and where there's enough space for a lot of trees. So there's an equity issue to this, which is what that tree equity score talked about. There are neighborhoods that hardly have any trees. And so they don't have the equal benefit of air cleansing, carbon dioxide uptake, oxygen, give. They don't have that equal benefit to those other neighborhoods.
Yeah, there's long-term health impacts to people who live there in terms of like
Right.
asthma and other services, you know.
So when a developer knocks down acres of trees, some that are large and healthy and 20 years old, the immediate effect is the noise that is not stopped, is the rainwater that's not stopped. And the neighbors are the immediate effects. They just lost the benefit of a cluster of trees that are healthy. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it's-
I have numbers
yeah.
in here. You're welcome.
No, that, the only that's on that iTree tool, like, that's something anybody in the public can go out. and
Anybody
check
can
out.
go, and I mean, the other, and I'll get to you, sorry, the other benefit is, the, land, it tells you the annual tree benefits of Old Saybrook and how we would increase our benefits by even a 10% increase of the, area plantable space that has trees.
That's great.
Yes,
So I'm fortunate enough that at my home, I'm surrounded by a lot of trees. And with that also comes the worry of the tree falling on your house or falling on your car or limbs coming down. In heavily populated areas, are there different kinds of trees that offer the benefits that don't have heavy limbs that come down? Or is there a strategy to that you could still plant these trees, but it wouldn't have the impact of, you know, like I said, a little bit of danger issues, or is that not factored in?
no, there are trees that are more wind resistant than other trees. There are strategies to support an ailing tree. I moved here from Tacoma Park, Maryland, and by the way, their tree canopy is 100%. And their tree canopy is 100% because they have a tree ordinance and they have to permit, you own a home in Tacoma Park, you can't cut down a tree unless you have justification for it. It's about the or it's an unhealthy tree. And they will work with you on how to support that tree. There's trees on the town green that are supported with wires and support. So, and tree work here should be done by an arborist, and that's a part of the Connecticut regulations. But yeah, is there a way to save trees? Yeah. Is there a way to get trees that are more wind resistant? And that's what we have to look at. And that's what we're hoping to get an expert or at least somebody, our vendor that we could go to. Yeah. Yes.
Question, when you're giving away the trees, hopefully, will you be matching where they're going on a personal property or on the property with the type of tree? Like, so you don't have people planting really tall, weak trees between houses that are really close together, for example. It looks great for the first 5 years, and then we have a problem that homeowners have to deal with in 15.
That's the goal, to do that. We gotta figure out how to do that. I know what Madison does. They take a picture of the tree. They take a picture of where the tree is. They hand out information to the homeowner. They have to fill out their registration form. So yes, we want serious tree people to take a tree. And by the way, these trees are not gonna be saplings. They're gonna be anywhere from maybe up to 5-gallon trees. They're gonna be big trees.
Oh, wow.
So we're not, and so the average, our budget is, we budgeted the average cost of the tree is $61. Our budget for the Arbor Day is $4,000. We're hoping to raise $4,000, and we can get a match on that. So we're gonna be selling trees and we're gonna disperse them at the First Church of Christ parking lot in the back. They offered their back for us. So yeah, we'll follow up and take pictures and make sure they have all the information they need. Yeah, we don't want to give out trees for the sake of trees. There's a goal in mind, to increase our tree canopy.
What percentage are native trees?
I don't know. What do you mean, what percent? We hope to give, we want to get the best trees that we can for this climate, this, area, and also sizes. We want to get a variety of sizes.
Right.
Because if somebody is, like, somebody's really close to a house, we're gonna, talk to them about, and by the way, the trees that will be available, we will describe what those trees are. Average height, average shade, average sun, needs of the tree. So, and Madison for Trees does all this. So that's our goal, is to educate people about the trees that are available.
Does Madison have a tree warden?
They do. Any other questions?
Chuck Eden, this is Laura Gray, or Chuck.
Yes, I just have one last question. Because we really haven't talked about cabling. And one of the things I've noticed on these large trees, that sometimes they need cabling to support them so they don't collapse during storms. And I don't really believe a lot of people are educated in that aspect of it. What are your thoughts?
No, you're right. I mean, yeah, some of the trees in the town green are cabled. You look at the trees right outside the cave, they're cabled. I don't know anything about cabling trees. But that, to your point, that can support a tree. Yes, Chris.
I would just chime in because I did one in my home, so it does take somebody taking notice, but you need to call an arborist and it costs money.
Yeah.
So, you need to be proactive on your own as a private citizen on your trees, but they're not gonna do it for free, but it's certainly effective when.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that I'd like to mention is, it appears to me that there's a whole lot of tree companies, ready to cut down your tree. And they're on next door, and I've been solicited myself. We have a catalpa tree, and, I mean, one man like scared me to death. Oh, you're gonna lose your roof. Oh, your grandkids are out there playing. Oh, a storm's gonna come and it's gonna crash their party. I'm like, whoa. So, but it's a cash cow to some people, and so you have to not fall for that. And ask questions and say, well, this tree's fine. I have save a tree, look at my tree, but really, I don't really need to talk to you about it. Because you're showing up on my yard trying to cut down my tree. So that's another part of education. So education is a big part of that.
Will the education also include what to do with all the leaves that we generate?
That is your job. No,
I don't rake leaves. I just let them sit there. But if we have a lot of canopy trees, we're gonna have a lot of leaves.
well, then I mean, trees do, bring economic benefits.
Right.
People that need to rake leaves, people that need to mulch trees, people that need to take care of trees, people that need to trim trees. I mean, there's a business need for that.
Right.
So, yeah. Yes.
One more question
Okay.
online from Laura Gray.
Hey, Laura.
Hi, Carolyn. What a nice presentation. Thank you. And the questions are great. So this is a question. I know that your organization is constrained by funding, and so is our town. But do you know what we're doing to keep some of our significant trees alive, like the remaining centennial elms that were planted in 1876? And also the beech trees that are being plagued at this time by beech leaf disease. What are we doing to protect our existing trees?
Well, I mean, in the conservation, in policy, it's the natural resources section of the Old Saybrook Plan of Conservation and Development. There is an action item here, prevent spread of invasive species. The Conservation Commission has suggested that we do a tree ordinance that flags historical trees. So we're not doing that. We don't have the authority to do that. This is why the appeal is to the land use department. And I know the staff here have been extremely supportive of. I mean, we all want to do this. Yeah, should we flag historical trees? Yes, we should.
Are you
And-
suggesting a tree census?
Yeah, we should do a tree census, but I will say in 2017, there was a publication called Historical Trees of Old Saybrook.
Oh,
And there was a tree commission in 2017. So there has been interest in historical trees, it's not that long ago. So we can rev that up, work with the Historical Society, work with the Conservation Commission, and work with all the commissions, zoning and planning and zoning appeals and inland, the IWW Commission. So yeah, there's a lot of interest in helping to do this.
I actually have a tree census from New Haven. It's very, very accurate and very, in-depth, so.
Well, so what are some of the things that zoning and planning is doing about trees and about the conservation plan?
I have no idea.
Well, we have a landscaping section of the regulations, the zoning regulations, a whole chapter
Right?
that requires planting of new trees. It also requires developers, if the trees are there before when they apply, to try to conserve those trees. And we have conservation plans, we have conservation easements. The planning commission looks at, we haven't had a subdivision in a long time, but we take that into consideration, you know, as well. So there are a number of different tools that we use. I think one of the things we've seen a lot of in the past 5 to 10 years, it's utility companies just coming through after Sandy. It's going through and just cutting everything down. We need power, it's dangerous. So, and DOT is not a fan of having trees in the right of way anymore, so they would prefer, they don't want the maintenance of it. So, there's a lot to trees.
Can we, is there an appetite for writing a tree ordinance? I mean, that's one thing that commissions can do.
Someone would have to enforce it though.
Well, but then you put,
We have an easement in the back of our property that, the homeowners do whatever they want. To cut down.
well,
And they're not supposed to.
Well, for the ZBA, I can say that there's been a few cases where somebody was putting in a pool or they were moving a shed. And when, it is suggested to add a line of trees, the people that have come before our board are usually very agreeable about it. And that'll be written into, their proposal. So they are open to it. So it could be added in more, you know, taking a look at all the proposals when people come before boards to suggest that.
so does that help? I mean, have you reached out to the town?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did say them sometimes.
Good.
Well, I mean, but it really is up to, you know, people just observing it and just calling the town and then, you know, maybe they'll save it or maybe they won't.
Understand what we're important.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
But then, you know, then you have to do that and your neighbors hate you because they want to cut those trees down. But only, you know, for the view, no other reason.
Well,
So we do have 2 other questions, and I'm
Okay.
just looking at the time because we have other meetings starting at 7.
okay.
And we can start them a little late, but just so we kind of need to think about wrapping up a little here in the next 5 minutes.
Are there more questions online?
Laura? Laura, do you?
We gotta go.
I'm all set.
Kath- Okay, Kathy?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. To answer the question about the elms, to my knowledge, the only 2 elms that are being treated for Dutch elm disease are the one on the town green and one on private property. There are 5 remaining elms from the 1876 planting of 56 elms. And 3 of them are on state roads. And one of the things that, one of the, let's say, subtleties of managing trees in Old Saybrook, aside from the Eversource action, is the fact that we don't actually own access to the roadsides. as far as I can tell, that are state roads. We have to get permission to do a lot of the things that need to be done along state roads. So that would include Route 154, which is Main Street and College Street. It includes Post Road, and other interesting places. So of the 5 remaining elms from 1876, and if you're not familiar with that, that was a centennial planting. It was done all over the United States. People were able to order elms from Washington, D.C. in celebration of the 100th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration. As Old Saybrook did it. We received 56 elms. A town committee went out and planted them. 5 of them still live, and one of them is right next to the fire station. The other one is on private property, and those are the only 2 I know of that are being treated at this time. If you really want to know about trees of significance in Old Saybrook, go to the Connecticut College Arboretum and look for trees, significant trees of Connecticut. In the Connecticut College Arboretum, they track significant trees over the entire state. There are literally thousands of trees. And yes, Old Saybrook does have more than a few of them. So that's it. Thanks, Chris.
Okay, I just want to wrap it up. So I want to tell you, we have a meeting on January 27th at the library. There's a lot of work to do. There are towns that have tree ordinances. There are towns right on our neighbors, our US Arbor Day tree cities. There is a way to work with Eversource. There is a way to work with developers. The town wants to keep trees. There's a way to do this. We're determined to do it because it's too critical to let this go by. So please come on the 27th. Please take a flyer. Thank you so much, Chris, and we'll be in touch with how we can help you help us.
Can I just make one other comment in terms of resources? So the town is right now, we have just started the annual budgeting process, and I came up here because I was trying to figure out exactly, I don't have the number that we have for our arborist line right now, but if, I think you said it was $2 per
$2 per
taxpayer in terms
yes.
of like a goal.
A budget for the, yeah.
I think that that's something that's achievable, not maybe in the next budget, but in terms of starting a conversation and having a goal over the next couple of budgets. And so if everybody that was here wrote an email to the Board of Selectmen or came and talked at one of the upcoming budget presentations, I think that is something that would be heard, because I know that I've asked about increasing our arborist line over the last couple of budget cycles, and Carl and I have talked about that both being for appropriate care or planting of trees as much as it is for taking down problem trees. So we've talked about that many times, so I think that there would be open ears from the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. All right.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the
Oh, well, thank
presentation.
you all.